Hi everyone, welcome back to my series on the 20-year film festival, in which I recommend 14 movies from each of the last 20 years in an effort to get you to watch some stuff that you haven't seen before. Basically, it's like, 14 movies, one per day equals like 2 weeks. That's like a film festival right there, 2 weeks for a film festival. So here's 14 great movies from a particular year to watch over the course of 2 weeks, or you can just pick a few that you want and ignore the rest, or you can watch them all in one 48-hour go, something like that. Anyway, we're on to the year 2000. We just got finished with 1999, and the year 2000, of course, the new millennium, new stuff, new movies, new ideas. Maybe not. We'll see. But no matter how good or bad any particular year is for movies, there are always some really good ones to recommend. And the first one that I want to recommend from the year 2000 is X-Men, directed by Bryan Singer. I had this little rule about not doing franchises except if the first movie can function as a standalone film, and in this case, it can. And the first X-Men movie is still my favorite of the X-Men films. Bryan Singer, of course, directed it, and he went on to do the second one, and of course, Days of Future Past as well, and he's doing the next one. But I like X-Men, the first one, quite a lot. You have the main characters, Wolverine, played by Hugh Jackman, and Rogue, played by Anna Paquin, and they get into some trouble with other bad mutants with superpowers. Oh, I forgot to mention that mutants have superpowers. You didn't know that, obviously. I had to explain that to you, otherwise you would never know what X-Men were. They get off some trouble with some good mutants and then fall under the care of Professor Xavier, who's played by Patrick Stewart, and the good mutants fight the bad mutants, and bad mutants want to do bad things to human beings that aren't mutants because they feel oppressed, etc., etc. Really great action movie. Lots of it was done on kind of a limited budget, so they didn't have the resources for big set pieces like they do now. But they still managed to get a few good licks in right there. Some really good stuff. And I really like the fight between Magneto and Wolverine at the end. At the Statue of Liberty is pretty cool, and it is a fight, really. It's a battle of wills, really. It's great. It's a good movie, very well written, lots of good dialogue from Joss Whedon, and yeah, just a fine film overall. Good escapist superhero movie. Next, I'd like to talk about Shaft. Shaft is directed by John Singleton. It is about Shaft's nephew, technically, because John Shaft, the original Shaft, played by Richard Roundtree, is in the movie. He's a private detective, and he is the main character's uncle. The main character being, of course, a New York police officer played by Samuel Jackson, also named John Shaft. The plot of this movie revolves around Christian Bale, who is a bit of a racist white guy, who kills a black guy just sort of because the black guy managed to tell a better joke than him, essentially. So Christian Bale kills the guy in cold blood, and there's a witness played by Toni Collette, but she gets scared and she leaves because Christian Bale is very wealthy and powerful, at least his dad is. So Samuel Jackson is intent on bringing this guy down. In order to get rid of Samuel Jackson, Christian Bale goes to Jeffrey Wright, who is a local drug dealer with some hoods and goons for muscle, and says, "Hey, can you help me out?" And Jeffrey Wright's like, "Sure, no problem." And so the conflict really comes down to between Samuel Jackson and Jeffrey Wright's character. I can't remember what the guy's name is, but he's really great. Really good cast in this movie. You got Vanessa Williams as Samuel Jackson's partner, yeah, just it's a fun movie. Just a good and everything really is about about race and this thing like that, but in a more lighthearted way than you could probably get away with in something like Selma. It's an escapist movie. It's an action movie, bit of a thriller, but mostly it's just Samuel Jackson being a total badass. This was like the #1 reason why Mr. Plinkett says that Samuel Jackson was a bad choice to play a serene Jedi Master, because Samuel Jackson's always the best when he's yelling at people and calling people mother bleeper. And although John Singleton's done some duds in his career, this is definitely one which he was working the good stuff right there, and has lots of good Samuel Jackson moments. I'm sorry if I'm like not articulate right now. It's late. It's like 3:30 in the morning where I'm working right now. So the next movie I want to talk about is Pitch Black, which is also the first movie in a series, but again, it works very well as a standalone film. Vin Diesel, of course, plays Riddick. the criminal, basically, who's being transported to a prison, and the ship that he's on, the spaceship, crashes on a desolate planet with these creatures that only seem to come out when it's completely dark, which is very rarely. When they do, they're extremely dangerous. You've got Cole Hauser and Radha Mitchell and David Keith as a couple other passengers in the ship, and so they're all working together to try and survive. But yeah, it's really, really fun movie, and just visually very, very striking film. There's a number of different visual styles throughout the course of the movie, depending on which sun is in the sky, because there's a couple of suns. And then you've got the night vision, because Riddick has night vision implanted in his eyeballs, and that's really cool looking as well. Really, really fun movie, and just a good sci-fi thriller. Now for a little change of pace, Cradle Will Rock. Cradle Will Rock is a movie that's based on a true story about people who were trying to put on a play during the Depression. The theater in New York, Broadway, is funded by the government because they needed to get people working again. So the government put all this money into special projects all over the country, and one of these was the theater district, so they could get actors and set designers and crew people working again, and just get the economy going again by any means necessary. But when they find out what this play is, basically it's sort of an anti-capitalist play, or at least the capitalist character in the play is a bad guy. Is that right? Yeah. No, I'm thinking of a different play. There's one play that's being put on, basically, that was written by John Turturro. No, sorry, it was written by Hank Azaria, sorry, and John Turturro is one of the, and John Turturro and Emily Watson. Gosh, it's been years since I've seen the movie, but it's really, really good. They're all putting on this play, but the government wants it shut down. They actually send police to stop the production of the play because they don't like the messages in it. Tim Robbins directed this movie after he did both Dead Man Walking with Susan Sarandon and his first film, which is a mock doc called Bob Roberts, a really, really great movie. And I haven't heard from him as a director recently. He's done more acting, but less directing, and it's too bad. I hope that he directs another film, because the films of his that I've seen are really, really good. And that's a good one as well. And it's another one of these movies that has a huge cast, because it's directed by an actor, got lots and lots of his friends to appear in the movie. Cary Elwes plays John Houseman. He's terrific. You've got... oh gosh, I can't even remember half the names of the people who are in the movie. Joan Cusack is in it, Bill Murray, darn it, I can't remember the guys, and I just can't remember people's names when I'm under pressure on camera like this sometimes. But it's really good and definitely worth checking out. Now we have a movie called The Minus Man. The Minus Man is a very, very low-key thriller, sort of. It takes place in a small town. Owen Wilson is a bit of a drifter who arrives in town and gets a job working for the post office delivering mail. But as it turns out, he's also a serial killer. Can you imagine Owen Wilson as a serial killer? Well, nobody in the movie can, which is why he gets away with practically everything that he does. You've got Janeane Garofalo plays a fairly big part in the movie. He's kind of sort of his girlfriend, but not really. They just sort of end up hanging out and doing a lot of drinking together. And what he does is he poisons people by leaving tainted booze lying around, and eventually his victim picks up the bottle and says, "Hey, mind if I have a drink of this?" "Yeah, sure, go ahead," says Owen Wilson. And once they drink it, they die, and he buries the body. Who knows why he's doing this exactly, but it's just one of those kind of mysterious main characters where you never really know for sure what he's thinking about, and which is really strange because he's actually narrating the movie this whole time. Anyway, another really killer ending on this one. Excuse me, I was talking about in the last video about the talented Mr. Ripley and what a killer ending that has. This movie has a killer ending as well. The final moment of the movie is just great. I'm probably building it up too much. The next movie is Traffic. Traffic, of course, is the movie that was nominated for a bunch of Oscars. Won Benicio del Toro. His Oscar won an Oscar for cinematography, or maybe it was editing, I can't remember exactly. But of course, Soderbergh, Steven Soderbergh, one of my favorite directors, won his Best Director Oscar for this movie. And while I wasn't like totally enamored with it when I first saw it, years later I saw it again when I watched like pretty much most of the movies that he'd done throughout his career, and it's one of the great ones. It's based on a British miniseries, also called Traffic, and it basically involves, excuse me, been talking for a while, cops and drug dealers and other people sort of in their orbit as the drug dealers are trying to move their product without getting busted, and then the cops are trying to bust them, etc. There's a really, really big cast, a lot of different characters in this. Don Cheadle, Louise Guzman, who are Soderbergh regulars, are in the film, of course. In addition to Benicio del Toro, you have Catherine Zeta-Jones and Dennis Quaid, and Michael Douglas, of course, whose daughter, Erica Christensen, also develops a drug addiction, and he has to deal with that. Just a big ensemble movie with a lot of intersecting characters. Terrific movie, really, really good. And finally, for this first of two videos I'm doing on 2000, I would like to talk about an ensemble comedy which has been a favorite of mine for a very long time, and one that I just love to think about and watch repeatedly. It's called Time Code. This movie doesn't have a really great edition on DVD. I think they only just got the one initial release, which is too bad because it is the perfect movie to watch on DVD. The movie, and if you know me at all, I've probably described this for you already, is divided into 4 sections. It's basically on screen you have 4 different shots running at once, and each shot runs the entire length of the movie without any cuts, like 90-minute takes, 4 of them all playing out simultaneously. And what they did was they had all these cameras running at the same time, capturing different views of characters who are moving amongst each other throughout the course of morning or an afternoon in Los Angeles at this film production company. And some of the characters are kind of dumb, which is good for comedy, and some of them aren't, but the whole thing basically is captured in one go. And what you're watching is basically a real-time movie, but 4 of them at the same time. And what's great about the DVD is you can actually pick a view to focus on, because when you watch the movie in the theater, when it was in the theater, the sound would go up in one quadrant and go down in others, so you could focus on one thing at a time, really. But with the DVD, you could pick one, which is great. You can watch the movie 4 times and see a different movie each time, or you can skip back and forth between the different quadrants, listening to the dialogue as needed. And some people don't like this movie very much. I've recommended it to a bunch of people, and some of them don't care for it all that much, but I have to recommend it, you know, for something like this, just because it's such an unusual experiment, and no one has really done this before, or since, really. And I've been, you know, just enjoying this for a really, really long time, and just love to think about it, and love to think about what it must have been like to actually shoot it without having to, doing the entire movie again and again with all the improvised dialogue. I don't know, I'm rambling a bit right here, but again, it's just something that I've enjoyed quite a lot. And maybe it's just my particular taste, but you know, if you haven't seen the movie, it sounds at all interesting, I would suggest you seek it out. The ensemble includes Salma Hayek and Jean Triplehorn, Saffron Burrows, Stellan Skarsgård, Holly Hunter. You know, it's just a big cast. Kyle MacLachlan, lots and lots of people in the cast. Peter Horton is particularly good as one of the executives at the studio. Xander Berkeley, who I really like a lot. Yes, so that's 7 movies from the year 2000, and I will be back, of course, with another video tomorrow on the second half of 2000, and I hope you'll tune in for that. And if you've missed any of the previous videos I've done, the link to the playlist with all these videos is below, so in the description, so you can check them out as well. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for commenting if you care to. Always like to receive comments on the videos I do. Appreciate it very much. See you again next time. Bye.